siempre inoportuno y muy mal y tal. Y claro, los dos contestan por lo menos.
Pero dentro de salvapantalla.
Dentro de la carpeta pone Jornada PPH estaba el archivo de salvapantalla. Está grabado ya para mañana, porque la siguiente diapositiva es la de la fecha de mañana. Vale. Ya.
No lo sé, imagino que no está tan cabreado que ya no. Que antes Dios mío. Yo ya esta mañana
Javier
no, mañana. Mañana tengo una revelación de salud, quiero ir esto más. Es que además he recibido otro correo de Carlos García Negrete también, que los de Alfa que no saben cómo hacerlo, lo del PPT y esto, lo de las comunicaciones con AUPI, que son fundamentales, macho. Y es que he visto un panorama en el cual hasta eso de una mierda resulta que dependemos de ellos. Entonces ya he visto que no tenemos futuro. Ah, oye, perfecto, ¿cómo lo has hecho? Venga, bueno, podemos esperar 5 minutillos. Well, this is one presentation, but I'm working in the same Who's talking? I have to, because our director general is invited for a late minute meeting, so I will start, then Javier Vera, and then it will be your turn. Okay. I will close. Okay. Very good. I think it's more that we can wait for the morning and people sometimes. I understand. Bueno, pero you are going to talk from the or
However you want. It might be easier for them to see me if I stand up.
yeah, so you both we want to walk around the
I could do whatever.
because this esto está
Okay. I feel like the king up here.
It's very flexible because these seats there are then down these.
Oh, okay.
So they put everything down here.
That's the reason this stage is so hard.
Yes, and then you have some configurations of the
You can hide everything under.
yes.
Okay.
But yes, it's like the king.
It's good to be the king.
Buenos días a todos y muchísimas gracias por venir a esta jornada interna, en principio, aunque, bueno, debido a la configuración del salón, pues no da mucho juego a que sea una jornada más bien interactiva, ¿no? Entonces, vamos a intentar tener una, en primer lugar, con una configuración de jornada, y luego sabéis que más adelante en la mañana habrá la oportunidad de hablar con el representante de la Oficina de Estados Unidos sobre aspectos más del día a día, ¿no? dentro de la propia oficina. Pero en principio queríamos, en una sesión interna, explicaros lo que es la firma de los acuerdos, que lo habréis visto en la web, con la Oficina de Estados Unidos, con la Oficina de Japón y con la Oficina de Canadá, y habrá más en el futuro sobre el Patent Prosecution Highway. El Patent Prosecution Highway es de lo que se está hablando ahora mismo políticamente en términos de patentes, ¿no? Se está hablando de PCT, PPH y la combinación de ambos como forma de resolver los problemas que tenemos sobre todo todas las oficinas respecto al backlog. Entonces, pusimos en el plan PI, en el plan estratégico de promoción de propiedad industrial en España, la posibilidad de que se pudiera firmar este tipo de acuerdos, sobre todo de cara a fomentar la internacionalización de la protección de la tecnología española en el exterior, que algo tenemos, no tenemos mucho, pero algo tenemos y tenemos que facilitar el acceso a la protección. Ya hacemos una gran labor en el tema del PCT, y la combinación del PCT con el PPH yo creo que tendrá un gran éxito. Como luego veremos, o como nos explicará el representante de Estados Unidos, pues ya veréis que con este sistema se agiliza enormemente la obtención de una patente tanto en Estados Unidos como en Japón como en Canadá, debido a la utilización de las búsquedas. Y esto la verdad es que ha sido posible gracias a todos los aspectos relacionados con la imagen de calidad que tiene la oficina y la imagen de calidad que tenéis vosotros en vuestro trabajo del día a día con la realización de los informes de búsqueda y de informes de examen, ¿no? Entonces, bueno, pues si os parece, cambio un poco al inglés, que haré lo que pueda para presentaros a los diferentes ponentes. Well, the first lecturer will be Javier Vera. All of you know him, and in his presentation he will just explain which is the procedure, the internal procedure, well, the meaning of the PPH for the Spanish Patent Office, and also which is the main procedure, internal procedure with respect to external patent application that comes to our office, and that we could take advantage of the results of the search and examination made by the USPTO, SIPO, and also the Japanese Patent Office. Next, Mr. Su, and I would like to thank him very much to be here, because the USPTO and also the Japanese Patent Office and also SIPO has been always very interesting in cooperating with us. They have been very open-minded, and we are very honored to have him here. He is currently the PPH, let's say, leader at the USPTO, let's say, if you allow me the word. And he's in contact not only with the Spanish Patent Office, but also with all offices participating in the PPH program at the USPTO. And also he's trying to take heart to try to convince also China to start PPH cooperation with the United States Patent Office, and I hope that in the next future this could be also a case for the Spanish Patent Office. And just to say again, thank you very much, Jeffrey, to be here, and thank you to the United States Patent Office for the kindness that you have always showed with us. Bueno, para terminar, pues yo creo que os dejo en buenas manos, y me gustaría dar la palabra en primer lugar a Javier Vera. Y bueno, pues se trata de que sea una sesión más bien interactiva, que no sea simplemente un mensaje en una dirección, y interrumpidnos un poco cuando lo estiméis pertinente. Bueno, gracias, y te dejo la palabra.
Hola, buenos días.
Hola, buenos días. Hoy se ha querido, aprovechando que venía Jeffrey de la oficina de Estados Unidos, se ha querido aprovechar y adelantar hoy una jornada interna para explicar cuáles son los hitos de este acuerdo, de estos acuerdos, de esta línea de acuerdos que se están firmando, llamados Patent Prosecution Highway, que es un procedimiento acelerado para patentes, que estamos firmando con varios países. Sí. Vale. Bueno, el lanzamiento del PPH, que nosotros en principio habíamos planteado quizás fuese un poquito más tarde, pero sí que es verdad que de acuerdo con el plan PI se ha querido acelerar los lanzamientos al 1 de octubre. Bueno, ha habido varias razones para este caso, pero bueno, sobre todo se ha considerado que dado a que en realidad no se espera que haya una avalancha de solicitudes, pues por lo tanto se consideró que sí que era factible poder asumir ese lanzamiento a partir del 1 de octubre. Entonces, o sea que ya estamos en funcionamiento estos procedimientos, y ahora iré explicando un poco cómo se han gestado, cómo se han ido realizando. El primero de todos, que ha sido todo muy rápido, el 3 de septiembre se firmó con Japón el acuerdo del PPH. Esta es la página de la oficina japonesa, con la firma, cuando estuvo visitándonos aquí el comisionado japonés, nuestro director general. En Estados Unidos, la página web, anunciando con el aviso que se dio de la firma que teníamos con Estados Unidos, y en la página web de Canadá también la publicación del acuerdo entre España y Canadá. Bueno, entonces, el marco del PPH. ¿Cuál es la razón del PPH? Primero, internamente, el Patent Prosecution Highway se encuadra dentro del Plan de Promoción de Propiedad Industrial en España, el Plan PI, como una herramienta estratégica de internacionalización y de trabajo compartido. Hay que tener en cuenta que dentro del Plan PI se estableció como una serie de estrategias o de directrices firmar un número de PPHs, ya que se consideraba que era una línea que podía ser muy interesante. El Patent Prosecution Highway nace hace algunos años, y nace, en realidad los primeros promotores son la oficina japonesa de patentes, que buscan vías de cooperación con otros países, con otras oficinas importantes, sobre todo con la idea de reducir la carga de trabajo y compartir el trabajo que se realizaba en unas oficinas y obtener algún tipo de ventajas. En realidad, en el entorno del PCT, estas oficinas han querido siempre profundizar más. Entonces, digamos, esto es un paso más allá del PCT, o de que algunas reticencias de algunos países o de algunos estados que están en el PCT no quieren ir más allá. El PPH permite, por estos acuerdos bilaterales, pues avanzar más, o de alguna forma incrementar más en esa reutilización de trabajo y en ese reconocimiento, del trabajo que hacen unos con respecto al que hacen otros. El marco del PPH, además, hay que verlo siempre en estas grandes oficinas, que son los grandes impulsores, la oficina japonesa, porque ellos, el número de patentes que tienen es grandísimo. El número de patentes que piden en Estados Unidos es con prioridades o por medio del PCT es un número muy alto. Por lo tanto, buscar este tipo de acuerdos que a esa gran cantidad de patentes que se están moviendo entre Estados Unidos y Japón, por ejemplo, les va a beneficiar, porque hay muchos retrasos, hay muchos problemas. Hay que tener en cuenta que la patente se debe entender como un vector industrial donde se realizan inversiones entre uno y otro país. Es un factor también de globalización, y por lo tanto interesa, digamos, desde el punto de vista institucional y desde el punto de vista de desarrollo económico industrial de todas las naciones desarrolladas, todo ese tipo de mecanismos, impulsarlos. Entonces, nosotros en España éramos conscientes de estas políticas del PPH, y ya en principio, en unos primeros contactos que se tuvieron hace algunos años, no muchos, pues ya, digamos, había un cierto interés de explorar en qué medida nosotros podíamos participar. Y digamos, nosotros siempre hemos visto con simpatía, sobre todo ya lo ves con más simpatía cuando ves que hay un club de países, que son precisamente todos los países más desarrollados, son los países que son administraciones del PCT, son todas esas oficinas europeas y americanas, las más desarrolladas, que ya están realizando este tipo de compromisos. Entonces, sopesando qué interés podía tener para nosotros, para la industria española, para la posibilidad de inversiones extranjeras, para que sea un vehículo también que facilite la penetración de todas estas inversiones en España, pues se consideró que podía ser un objetivo. No es que sea una panacea, pero sí que es un elemento más que puede favorecer este tipo de cuestiones. Bueno, pues un poco con esos antecedentes se incluyó, se apostó porque esto podía ser un compromiso que nosotros podíamos realizar, y se puso como dentro del plan PI uno de los objetivos a realizar una serie de PPHs, y a partir de ese momento todos estos contactos se han ido desarrollando, y de alguna forma, gran sorpresa por nosotros, hemos encontrado por parte, digamos, la otra parte o las otras partes, un interés claro y decidido, porque está claro que sin ponernos casi ningún problema nos han incluido, nos han considerado que estábamos en ese club selecto, que sí que podíamos optar a pertenecer a este tipo de acuerdos. Por ejemplo, en el caso de Japón han considerado muy importante el hecho de que fuésemos administración del PCT y que nosotros fuésemos un elemento de conexión con Latinoamérica, y también un factor para el desarrollo también de inversiones y de tráfico, digamos, económico y tecnológico. O sea, quiero decir que se nos ha dado un valor, y esa ha sido la razón, porque en muy poco tiempo, en realidad, en unos 6 meses desde que se han empezado estos contactos ya en serio hasta la culminación de los acuerdos, ha pasado muy poco tiempo, y de hecho pues se sigue hablando con varios países más, y se puede decir que incluso hay un desbordamiento de cuestiones de negociación, porque en realidad podrían hacerse muchos más de los que hemos hecho. Bueno, el PPH entonces originalmente lo que pretende es reducir retraso en la gestión de expedientes y contribuir a fomentar los intereses de la industria española en el exterior. Se obtiene un beneficio para los usuarios de decisiones de patentabilidad más rápidas y de mayor calidad utilizando los productos nacionales y los internacionales del PCT. Aquí hay que tener en cuenta que, dado que se utilizan los resultados de búsqueda y examen de las oficinas originales, de las primeras oficinas, se ha considerado que en 2 de los acuerdos, de los 3 acuerdos firmados, en 2 y en algunos más de los que vienen, considerar que el PCT también es un resultado válido para ser utilizado, y que de alguna forma se obtenga también un beneficio de ese resultado. En general, por regla general, aunque no es excluyente, pero por regla general los resultados del PCT parece lógico que se utilicen cuando se utiliza el PCT, digamos, de forma natural, cuando entra en la fase nacional. Eso parece que es el sentido lógico de utilizar un PPH con resultados del PCT, pero podría ser de otra manera. Podrían ser solicitudes PCT que luego no entran, no siguen la ruta del PCT entera, o se entra en España por la vía de París. O sea, que puede haber varias. En definitiva, lo que se permite es que siempre que se pueda, si hay un resultado de PCT realizado por la oficina de origen, puede utilizarse en un momento determinado. Y ya digo, el PPH no es vinculante, pero sí implica un reconocimiento internacional mutuo de trabajo de búsqueda y examen entre oficinas de patentes. ¿Qué es lo que se quiere entonces? ¿Por qué el PPH? ¿Qué ofrece el PPH? Bueno, pues el PPH lo que se quiere ofrecer es, bueno, a cambio, digamos, de esa reutilización de trabajo, de esa utilización de ese trabajo anterior, se quiere ofrecer una serie de ventajas a los solicitantes. La ventaja fundamental es acelerar el trámite de concesión de la patente en otros países. O sea, eso es lo que se da a cambio. Porque eso es en realidad los problemas que se tienen con todas las patentes que originalmente que vienen a nivel internacional, que te vienen de un PCT, por ejemplo, o que te vienen con por la ruta de París. pues lo que tiene que ofrecer, digamos, la oficina, digamos, receptora es la aceleración. Para eso esa oficina, como la nuestra, debería contar con unos mecanismos de poder acelerar esa tramitación. El hecho de que nosotros ya disponemos, digamos, de unos mecanismos para hacerlo, ha permitido que pudiésemos, como elemento básico, pues poder ofrecer esa aceleración siempre y cuando se cumplan las condiciones de entrada. Permite la reutilización de resultados de búsqueda y examen entre oficina de patentes, reduciendo la carga de trabajo al evitar la duplicación de trabajo y aumentando la calidad del examen. Es evidente que si viene un informe con una solicitud de patente con un informe ya realizado, con una opinión, con una first action, con algo de esto ya hecho, eso fomenta o facilita y aumenta la calidad de ese examen. Reduce costes y tiempo de búsqueda de examen. Y la cuestión clave del PPH, o como cuestión, hay dos, en la nomenclatura que se utiliza en el PPH es la OFF, que es Office First Filing, y la OSF es Office Second Filing. La OFF es en cada solicitud de patente, sería el lugar original de donde sale la patente, y la OSF es el lugar, digamos, el segundo lugar donde va a para la oficina de segundo depósito. La condición, digamos, básica no es que se aporte un informe, sino que además el informe debe ser positivo. Es decir, para optar a ese beneficio que se obtiene en el PPH, en la OSF, en la oficina de segundo depósito, esa solicitud de patente ha debido salir y debe presentarse al hacer una solicitud PPH con un informe de patentabilidad positivo en varias modalidades, en las varias modalidades existentes. Por ejemplo, en el PCT, un informe positivo. Es una first action, un informe positivo. A nosotros nos han reconocido, digamos, nuestros informes sobre estado de la técnica siempre y cuando sean positivos. O nuestros informes del PCT siempre y cuando sean positivos. O sea, la naturaleza del documento que hay que presentar es que ese informe sea positivo, con una serie de condiciones. Y ahora digo cuáles. Bueno, el procedimiento de PPH en la Oficina Española de Patentes y Marcas. Actualmente las tres oficinas involucradas son Estados Unidos, Japón y Canadá, para solicitudes con prioridad extranjera de estas solicitudes, de estos países de origen. O bien a fase nacional. En fase nacional en realidad es una generalización, pero bueno, se puede decir que en general va a ser fase nacional del PCT, provenientes de Estados Unidos o de Japón, que son los que, digamos, está establecida la vía de reconocimiento de informes PCT. La razón de que no esté en Canadá no es por nosotros, sino porque aquí hay tiene que haber una correspondencia entre lo que se reconozca en un país o en el otro, y con Canadá no reconocen, digamos, el PCT, pero nosotros sí. Entonces, debe solicitarse mediante un formulario un procedimiento PPH. El PPH se puede decir que, a distinción de nuestro procedimiento acelerado, no necesita pedirse en la solicitud de patente, sino que puede solicitarse en cualquier momento de la tramitación. En el momento que un PPH se solicita y lógicamente aporta los documentos que se le exigen y las condiciones que se le exigen, puede acceder a él. Claro, lógicamente hay que examinar si cumple o no cumple esas condiciones para que pueda optar realmente a acceder al PPH. Ya digo que tienen que ser, por regla general, son solicitudes con prioridad extranjera. O sea, tiene que ser una solicitud con prioridad extranjera, luego esa solicitud tiene que tener todos sus condicionantes como prioridad extranjera, tiene que haber solicitado una patente, y luego el PPH, digamos, no necesariamente va en esa solicitud, sino que puede ser posterior. Y en algunos casos será posterior, porque como va a depender de un informe y ese informe puede ser posterior, pues por lo tanto el PPH opta en ese momento. La solicitud de PPH se admite si se aporta un resultado de búsqueda o examen positivo de la oficina de primer depósito en al menos una de las reivindicaciones. Es decir, debe ir acompañada o debe tener acompañada, luego se da flexibilidad en cuanto a cómo aportar esa documentación, pero sí que debe ir acompañada de ese examen positivo. Y se dice en al menos una de las reivindicaciones originales. Lo que sí que es verdad es que todas las reivindicaciones que se presentan o que optan a ese PPH en España tienen que estar relacionadas con la reivindicación o reivindicaciones que tiene el informe positivo. Es decir, para que sea admisible como PPH, la solicitud que está en España tiene que tener todas sus reivindicaciones que están ahí presentadas, que corresponden con reivindicaciones que tienen un examen positivo en el primer depósito. Y ese informe, ya digo, puede ser o lo que se llama una first action, un informe PCT, un informe de patente nacional, cualquier cosa. Entonces, si una solicitud tiene una reivindicación, por ejemplo, una reivindicación, vamos a poner en un caso una reivindicación dependiente, que la independiente no es positiva y la dependiente si es positiva, se podría admitir una presentación donde se presentase una combinación de reivindicaciones, donde esa combinación ya fuese positiva, ya el informe le afectase, digamos, positivamente. Por ejemplo, cosas que no se admiten, sí, que tenga un informe positivo de patentabilidad, de novedad, actividad inventiva. O sea, que sea patentable, que esas reivindicaciones sean patentables. De acuerdo, lógicamente, con los criterios que sigue la oficina original, que no exactamente son siempre los mismos. Pero al menos se exige eso. Entonces, bueno, y entonces eso lo digo luego en lo que hay que presentar. Eso obliga a presentar al solicitante una tabla de correspondencia. O sea, en la solicitud del PPH, el solicitante debe presentar una tabla de correspondencia de reivindicaciones para, bueno, lógicamente en caso de que haya variaciones, pero bueno, lo que se deben relacionar son las reivindicaciones que han sido objeto del informe y relacionarlas, hacer en esa tabla de correspondencia, relacionarlas con qué reivindicaciones se presentan ahora. Y lógicamente solamente las que se presentan tienen que estar afectadas por la parte del informe que sea positivo. Por ejemplo, cosas que no se admiten, no puede haber correspondencia, por ejemplo, si la categoría de las reivindicaciones son distintas. Entonces no se debe admitir un PPH si cambia de categoría. Reivindicaciones. Bueno, yo creo que está claro que debe ser muy claro que lo que se presenta ha sido admitido positivamente. Sí que es verdad que puede haber criterios distintos. Por ejemplo, en la oficina de Estados Unidos se puede haber admitido por algunas cosas que aquí no son patentables. Bueno, pues, pero en principio eso, digamos, como PPH se debería poder admitir. Y entonces una solicitud PPH admitida desencadena un procedimiento acelerado de concesión. En esta esquema, aquí se explica en este esquema la ruta por el convenio de la Unión de París y abajo la ruta del PCT. Básicamente el esquema lo que viene a decir es lo que he dicho antes, o sea, una solicitud, fijaros ahí pone OFF, OSF. La línea de arriba, en la ruta de París, la solicitud es la de OFF, que sigue una búsqueda de examen y que se considera, digamos, que es patentable, ¿no? Algo que se puede patentar. Entonces, paralelamente, por la vía de la ruta de París, en el plazo de un año se ha podido presentar un certificado de prioridad en otro país y entonces uno puede solicitar dentro de ese segundo país una solicitud para el PPH y en el momento que esté disponible ese informe, esa first action, esa concesión, eso lo que sea, que diga que es permisible, un informe. Y entonces ahí se puede hacer y entonces ahí desencadena un examen, una tramitación acelerada en la oficina de segundo. En el PCT, la ruta de París, se ha solicitado una solicitud del PCT, se ha hecho una opinión escrita o un IPER, que es el examen, el informe preliminar de examen, el examen de capítulo 2, o sea, cualquier de los productos del PCT, de examen o de búsqueda, y entonces bueno, pues puede desencadenar o bien en una fase nacional, básicamente fijaros que ahí en realidad pone otra vez National Regional Phase, o sea, parece que lo lógico en el PCT es que sea, pero ya digo, puede no ser, o sea, porque existe efectivamente casos, pero que eso los contempla los acuerdos que están firmados. O sea, en realidad lo que se permite es que cualquier producto del PCT pueda ser el documento que permita o que justifique la emisión de un PPH. Bueno, la solicitud del PPH en la oficina española pues parte de un formulario de petición. En ese formulario de petición es donde está la tabla de correspondencia. O sea, hay una tabla de correspondencia entre las reivindicaciones originales y las declaradas patentables. Luego hay que aportar o hacer aportar un informe de búsqueda y o examen positivo. Hay que también aportar la copia de las acciones realizadas por la oficina, de todas las acciones por la oficina de primer depósito. Hay que aportar los documentos citados por el examinador de primer depósito, pero aquí se da mucha flexibilidad, es decir, si el examen, pero también me refiero al informe de búsqueda y examen positivo, el informe, o sea, toda esa documentación, si toda esa documentación está disponible de alguna forma y se hace ver que está disponible, por ejemplo, en las bases en las páginas web que están, por ejemplo, abiertas a inspección, están todos los documentos, no se exigen. Es decir, si todos estos documentos están disponibles de una forma normal, no se exigen. Por ejemplo, documentos citados, no se exigen documentos de patentes, por lógica. ¿Qué se exigiría? Pues un documento de literatura no patente que habitualmente no está en la base de datos. Es decir, aquí se quiere ser flexible, es decir, un documento, por ejemplo, no hace falta tampoco dar toda la documentación de todo el expediente si está disponible en la oficina de origen y es visible. No hace falta aportar todo, copias y copias, no, sino hay que hacer una referencia a que está en tal sitio y ya está. Y luego en cuanto a los idiomas se admite inglés o español en todos los que sean. Sí. Mira, en ese sentido eso sí que diría que es flexible, porque en realidad en los acuerdos que hay firmados se permiten hasta traducciones automáticas de documentos. Pero si no se entienden esas traducciones automáticas, se puede exigir. O sea, en realidad no es que... O sea, la cuestión no es tanto el hecho de decir, lo tienen que presentar o traducido o el documento que lo entienda, sino el hecho de que si ese documento es relevante a la hora de examinar, digamos, tenemos más bien la facultad de pedirlo, pero no se va. O sea, lo tienen que presentar o tienen que hacerlo accesible, pero digamos una patente japonesa, la idea no es que cargar al solicitante con la carga de que para que se la emita en el PPH tenerlo que traducirlo al inglés o al español, no, sino que si se considera que realmente es esencial, se puede pedir ese documento.
dejáis un segundo.
Bueno, yo también le he preguntado a Jeffrey, aprovechando que ellos tienen mucha más experiencia, y en líneas generales, bueno, deciros que esto es un piloto, por lo cual todas esas cosas que pueden surgir son muy necesarios que las transmitáis para que de alguna forma podamos encontrar vías de solución, porque efectivamente lo que dices puede ser un problema y habrá que solucionarlo. Una de las ventajas del PPH para mí, desde el punto de vista general, no desde los problemas más particulares que se puedan producir, es que de repente nos hemos encontrado con vías de acceso a oficinas que para nosotros eran completamente opacas. No había forma de acceder o era muy difícil acceder a la oficina japonesa, no había puntos de acceso para la oficina de Estados Unidos o para la oficina de Canadá o para la oficina rusa, por ejemplo, con los cuales también probablemente firmemos un acuerdo a principios del año que viene. Entonces, poder solucionar todos estos temas es precisamente el PPH nos va a abrir vías para que se puedan solucionar todos estos temas y podamos aprovechar plenamente todos los resultados de búsquedas de otras oficinas. En todo caso, siempre se le puede pedir al solicitante. A mí lo que me ha explicado Jeffrey ahora mismo es que en estos casos se solicita al solicitante que entreguen una traducción del documento y el documento original. O sea, en caso de duda se pide al solicitante.
No sé si queríais añadir algo.
O sea, en el acuerdo, por ejemplo, que tenemos con Japón, los documentos se tienen que presentar traducidos al inglés, pero se permiten traducciones automáticas. Entonces, lo que pone el acuerdo es que si las traducciones automáticas no son comprensibles, se puede solicitar una traducción jurada o real o no sé, o certificada. O sea, pero sí, se exige traducción, pero a veces las traducciones automáticas no son todo lo bueno que se quiera. Sí. A efectos de presentación, pero en caso de duda, si el examinador considera que no se, el acuerdo permite pedir una traducción certificada o real, es que no sé cómo lo hemos puesto. Bueno, a raíz de esto, y no lo tengo aquí, a raíz de esto me estoy acordando que de todas las conversaciones que hemos tenido, una de las que más me gustó fue bueno, todas, por no, también hemos hablado con ellos, con los ingleses, y ellos nos dijeron que el PPH que tenían con Japón, cómo le estaba funcionando. Y vinieron a decir más o menos que el 70% o algo así, un número así, de los PPHs que recibían de Japón, o sea, es decir, solicitudes que se presentaban en el Reino Unido de patentes con prioridad japonesa y que tenían un informe positivo que provenía de Japón porque era la única forma de acceder a un PPH, el 70% se concedían y había un 30% que no, o sea, que daba problemas. O sea, lo cual quiere decir que, bueno, que el PPH lo que hace es que facilita el procedimiento, lo acelera, da más previsibilidad qué es lo que va a ocurrir, es decir, va a hacer una serie de cosas. Pero ahí insisto en el carácter no vinculante. Y, por ejemplo, lo comparaban, en algunos de estos informes lo comparaban con qué ocurre con aquellos que no son de PPH y eran el índice de aceptación nada más que era el 30%, una cosa así, y sin embargo cuando ya se iba al PPH subía al 70%. Y todos estos números son muy parecidos entre todas las oficinas. O sea, pasan de un 30 a un 70, de un 40 a un 80, o sea, normalmente se duplica la posibilidad de ser concedidas. En nuestro procedimiento, claro, es distinto porque nosotros concedemos todas las patentes si van por el procedimiento general de concesión. Pero bueno, de alguna forma nosotros también son patentes más fuertes, son patentes mejores de alguna forma, ya que vienen con un informe de base positivo. O sea, que quiero decir que nosotros desde ese punto de vista también lo consideramos que nos beneficia. Bueno, otro esquema que es similar. Bueno, aquí lo importante, digamos, lo importante del esquema, hay varios esquemas aquí, que para poder optar al PPH, las reivindicaciones que se presentan o que optan con el PPH tienen que ser reivindicaciones que están permitidas, o sea, que son patentables, y que debe existir en el caso que haya diferencia de las dos, porque si no la tabla de correspondencia es la misma, debe existir una tabla de correspondencia que relaciona las reivindicaciones patentables con lo que se presenta. ¿Ventaja para el solicitante? Bueno, pues es reducción de tiempo de tramitación en el extranjero. En el extranjero se entiende que tanto el japonés aquí como el español en Japón o en Estados Unidos, porque la ventaja de estos acuerdos es que automáticamente, si se hace el mismo procedimiento, en el extranjero permiten que se les acorte los plazos. Hay que tener en cuenta que los plazos, por ejemplo, en Japón se está hablando de first action, me parece que dijeron en 28 meses. Puede ser. O sea, la primera comunicación que reciben, no concesión, primera comunicación es 28 meses. En Estados Unidos también son first action muy altas también. Y todo eso, por ejemplo, en Japón se reducía a 2-3 meses, están hablando del first action. O sea, que si una empresa dinámica que quiere exportar, que quiere en española, que quiere extenderse hacia Japón, hacia Estados Unidos, va a tener, si realmente considera que la patente es un factor importante, va a tener una serie de ventajas. Luego, ¿qué ventajas existen? Predictibilidad de los resultados. Si uno ya sabe que para ir al extranjero, ya sea japonés, ya sea español, o sea de Estados Unidos, ya sabe que su oficina le ha dado un informe positivo, pues ya predice que posiblemente va a tener un informe positivo también. La calidad de la patente es mayor, ya que lógicamente tiene no solamente el examen o la búsqueda que se hace interna, sino que se hace también trae la suya propia. Y es útil para empresas que pretendan una expansión rápida a nivel internacional. Aquí quería mostrar un poco los datos, que esto nos lo dieron los japoneses, de un poco cómo estaba funcionando. La oficina de patentes como oficina de segundo depósito o la oficina japonesa como oficina de primer depósito. Estos números que hay aquí, que nos dicen el número de PPHs acumuladas, por ejemplo, japonesas en Estados Unidos, 2.436, si nos pone y nos hace ver un poco qué es lo que va a pasar aquí, y todo eso es un poco parecido. Hay que tener en cuenta que en Estados Unidos se piden cada año, y esto es acumuladas desde hace algunos años, o sea que tampoco se sabe muy bien porque realmente esos datos no los tenemos, pero bueno, puede ser que se estén pidiendo unas 1.000 PPHs al año, por ejemplo, japoneses en Estados Unidos. Claro, 1.000 PPHs comparado con, en Estados Unidos vienen 400.000 patentes, 200.000 son extranjeras más o menos, y del orden de magnitud de unas 50 o 60.000 japonesas al año. Luego, siempre nos está dando unos números del orden del 5% de las prioridades pueden devenir en PPH. Ese es el número que se está barajando, 5% de las prioridades que actualmente tiene o que realmente tiene cada país en el país extranjero. Eso se convierte en un 5% de las PPH. Ahora, actualmente hay que tener en cuenta que nuestro nivel de solicitudes prioritarias o PCT vía nacional, fase nacional, es bajísimo, dado que al pertenecer a la Comunidad Patente Europea eso es un paraguas que nos absorbe prácticamente todas las solicitudes extranjeras en España. Por lo tanto, me parece que estábamos hablando de, por ejemplo, solicitudes japonesas prioritarias, debíamos tener de magnitud de unas 25 o 30 al año, de Estados Unidos más o menos lo mismo. Si vamos al 5% de esos son los números que estamos hablando, los números que estamos barajando. O sea, del orden de muy poco. O sea, en realidad van a ser pocas en teoría. Se supone que va a fomentar, pero en el caso que lo fomente, pues estaríamos hablando de 5 o 10 por país, como mucho. Eso es en realidad lo que se va. Por eso quiero decir que no hay un temor muy grande y todos estos números todos corresponden a esos porcentajes. Es decir, si uno ve estos números y uno ve las solicitudes que tiene cada país en el otro y ve cuál es el porcentaje de solicitudes prioritarias, ya sea por la vía de París o bien por el PCT, pues nos damos cuenta que eso es las previsiones que estamos teniendo. Es decir, no se espera que vaya a haber un repunte o que vaya a afectar significativamente a la carga de trabajo, pero sí que es verdad que es un mecanismo que se quiere ofrecer porque va a favorecer, por un lado, la inversión extranjera en aquel que lo interese, le va a ser un elemento más, es una ventaja que se ofrece más, y para los españoles pues lo mismo. En este diagrama, que me imagino que saldrá muchas veces porque pues aquí está el esquema del PPH en el mundo, ya se ve que las oficinas que están ahora mismo ahí en el candelero son todas pues muy importantes, muchas son administraciones de PCT. Y bueno, las flechas rosas significan las relaciones que existen entre todos y cada uno de los países con el resto. Y bueno, y con esto pues ya he terminado. Muchas gracias.
Pues muchísimas gracias. Bueno, si queréis hacer alguna pregunta, si no, me gustaría decir algún comentario más. Primero, ¿por qué Canadá, Estados Unidos y Japón? Bueno, lo primero que se hizo fue un análisis de dónde se internacionalizaba más y cómo internacionalizaban las empresas españolas, dónde iban con sus patentes nacionales fuera de España. Entonces se vio que, claro, lógicamente, en primer lugar utilizan la vía del PCT, eso no es decir mucho, puesto que es una vía que acaba en un abanico de patentes nacionales o regionales, y después lo que hacían era, lógicamente, solicitar ante la Oficina Europea de Patentes, que el 1 de enero, sabéis que comienzan un proyecto que se llama de utilización o de reutilización, en el cual obligan al solicitante a entregar las búsquedas que haya realizado las oficinas nacionales. Inmediatamente después de la Oficina Europea está Estados Unidos, Japón y Canadá, por este orden. Entonces, son mercados que interesan desde el punto de vista tecnológico. Lo que se espera para el futuro, pues bueno, hay muchas esperanzas puestas en el PPH, sobre todo en cuanto a, como diríamos, proyección del trabajo de la oficina española hacia el exterior y también vías de entrada. Yo creo que en el momento actual tenemos que dar un servicio cada vez mejor, eso es inevitable si queremos ser más competitivos, y en segundo lugar nos conviene también crear vías de entrada. Aparte de la Oficina Europea, como ha dicho Javier, lo más esperable es que todas las solicitudes que nos vienen de Japón, de Estados Unidos y de Canadá, como sucede ahora mismo, utilicen la vía de la Oficina Europea de Patentes. Pero tal y como están las cosas, yo creo que es estratégico para la oficina crear otras vías de entrada donde les demos algún factor de mayor competencia con respecto a lo que les ofrece la Oficina Europea de Patentes. Si logramos conceder una patente que viene de fuera en menos tiempo que ellos, pues probablemente podamos desviar algo de la atención que ahora mismo está recabando la Oficina Europea. Entonces, lo que se espera del futuro del PPH es mucho. O sea, estamos hablando quizás sea exagerado, pero vamos, es algo así, del futuro también del trabajo de la oficina en lo que respecta a patentes, ¿no? En lo que a patentes se refiere y a proyección internacional. Y ahí vosotros sois los protagonistas fundamentales. O sea, dependiendo de la calidad del trabajo que salga de los examinadores, de cómo sea percibida tanto en estas oficinas, que son punteras en el mundo, y del grado de aprovechamiento que se puede realizar de ellos, pues lógicamente este sistema tendrá éxito o no lo tendrá. En todo caso, también deciros una cosa, que la decisión de conceder o no conceder en el caso de un PPH que viene de fuera es vuestra. Es decir, una de las características del PPH es que la capacidad de decisión queda en la oficina de segundo depósito. Por lo tanto, no hay ningún tipo de cesión de ningún tipo de decisión, capacidad de decisión, soberanía, etcétera, etcétera. Lo que sí que es cierto es que se duplican, como ha dicho Javier, y luego veremos algunas estadísticas. Primero, el tiempo se reduce espectacularmente, el tiempo de concesión, es decir, una PCT española que entre en fase nacional en la oficina de Japón, por ejemplo, recibe la first action de la oficina japonesa, en lugar de en 28 meses, lo puede recibir en mes y medio, con lo cual el tiempo de concesión se reduce drásticamente, y yo creo que eso las empresas lo van a apreciar, igual que en el caso de Estados Unidos, ¿no? Y en resumen, pues yo creo que tenemos que apostar por estas vías, y me parece muy importante, y como veis un poco por el gráfico, todo el mundo es por lo que está apostando, y nosotros, como en calidad de oficina PCT, pues yo creo que tenemos una oportunidad única de realzar el trabajo que estamos realizando, sobre todo en el PCT. Y bueno, y sin más, I would like to introduce Jeffrey Su. I have introduced him at the very beginning of this, let's say, seminar or presentation of the PPH in Spain. And, well, he has prepared a couple of presentations. The first one is about the general overview of the USPTO, how they work, how they are organized. The USPTO is something fantastic. This year I had for my first time there. and it is completely fantastic with museums and shops and everything. It's Mr. Capos also there, and it's a fantastic experience to be there. And I think that is one of the well, if not the most important office in the world. They have a lot of history behind with respect to inventions. They have a Hall of Fame of inventors where all inventions you can imagine has their USPTO patent. And I think it's an honor to us to have you here and to present the USPTO. And the second presentation will be about the PPH and how, which is the experience of the USPTO with respect to the PPH. They are, let's say, pushing a lot around the world to have as many offices involved in the PPH as possible. And we have always received a very good perception from the United States Patent Office. Offline I could say that I wish that the EPO could be so sensitive with the Spanish Patent Office as the USPTO has been so far. So it's I don't want to steal more time, and Jeffrey, the floor is yours. Okay, you want to sit down here?
I'm going to stand up.
Oh, okay. We have to leave, but we will come back, okay?
Okay, good morning. Thank you so much. Thank you, Gerardo. I'd like to thank the Spanish and Trademark Office for inviting me. It was many, many months ago that Gerardo visited our campus, and we had a very good discussion, and it's great to see the progress that we made. I have to actually thank Gerardo for pushing and encouraging the USPTO. He encouraged us to do the PCT PPH portion. So we can learn from all the offices. It's not just the USPTO always leading. We are also taught by other offices. I really do thank Gerardo for encouraging us to do that, because it has been a very big success. Just on October 1st, not only did we launch the Spanish Trademark Office PPH, but we also launched the Austrian and also Ross Patent, which is quite an achievement, where 3 PCT authorities were able to join the PPH program. So we have a very good relationship, and I hope to continue it. I'm going to give a talk this morning on 2 things, as Gerardo said. I'm going to give a small introduction on the USPTO. I imagine none of you have visited, so I was thinking that it'd be nice to put a face to the USPTO. I can be talking about PPH, but you may not know much about USPTO. So I thought I'd give a little overview of who we are, and what we do, and some of the inner workings of what David Capos, our new director, is up to. And then I'll go over PPH. I'm not going to go as in-depth as the previous presentation. The presentation was excellent. I thought I gave a very good overview. But I'm going to give a more general overview about some of the USPTO's views on the PPH and the status of our PPH and the future of the PPH. As you know, it's a growing world program, but it is right now a series of bilateral agreements. It's not a multilateral agreement. It's a series of bilateral. We have something called the plurilateral PPH, and which is just a framework of all the PPH participating offices, and we get together about twice a year to go over and try to figure out ways of streamlining it, ways of best practices, sharing information, and sharing our statistics. So I think that's going to continue growing. So I hope to give you a little bit of a world view of the PPH program. So let me start now with the introduction to USPTO. We were established in, I think I'll read it this way. Okay, it's perfect. We were established in 1790, and we completed our new headquarters, which is in Alexandria, Virginia, which is outside Washington, D.C. In the history of the USPTO, we have moved, thank you, perfect. we've moved several times. We were originally in Washington, D.C., then we moved outside to what we call the suburbs of Virginia. And we ended up in Alexandria, Virginia, where we consolidated all our buildings. That's what Gerardo was talking about. We're now on one campus, strictly for the USPTO. We're fully fee-funded. What does that mean? Well, we have two business lines. We are in the business of patents and the business of trademarks. And what do we sell? We sell, so to speak, our services are patent grants, trademark registrations, and patent and trademark information. The applicants obviously are paying fees to get those patents applications examined, and then they also pay maintenance fees for the grants, and the same as trademarks. We were fully fee-funded since 1993, meaning that we are so profitable in a sense that we do not take taxpayer money. In fact, Congress has been taking our money, which is a big controversy. Much of what we've been trying to do in Congress, working with Congress, is to prevent that. But just to give you an idea of our operating revenue, in 2008 we had a revenue of $1.91 billion, and in 2009 a revenue of $1.98 billion. That may seem like a lot, but we're always running out of money. Just this year we are, as you know, with the economic crisis, I think most of the offices saw a decrease of filings, which had an effect on our operations. And this led to definitely a budget crunch. Right now we have about 9,000 staff members, and we're continuing to hire. And we also have many, many contractors who assist the USPTO. As you know, we have the Constitution, which actually gives us, or actually decrees that the USPTO existence, what we do. We have to promote the progress of science and useful arts by securing limited times to authors and inventors the exclusive right to their respective writings and discoveries. So in many senses, we always say we have job security because the Constitution mandates our office. Just to give you the structure of the federal government, we're in the executive branch. There's executive, judicial, and legislative. We're under the president. We're under the Department of Commerce. We're an agency under them, the United States Patent and Trademark Office. We're a performance-based organization. What does that mean? We had an act in 1999, the American Inventors Protection Act, and what we were trying, or what the purpose of the act was, to try to give us management more flexibility and control of operations, essentially quasi independence to better manage operations, more focusing performance on goals, measurable goals, and aligning the organization that way, and also become more results oriented. This is especially important with increasing workloads and the uncertainty regarding fee legislation. Our undersecretary, who I said was Undersecretary David Kapos, who was appointed last year around this time, he's appointed by the president. Then we had the deputy undersecretary, who was appointed by the Secretary of Commerce, and her name is Sharon Barner. She actually was a partner in Foley and Lardner, which is a law firm in Chicago. And the commissioners, the Commissioner of Trademarks and the Commissioner of Patents, are again also appointed by the Secretary of Commerce. They're 5-year terms with yearly performance reviews, and the commitments that are defined by those agreements are cascaded down, meaning that the next levels of management have to also follow those commitments. Here is a diagram, organizational diagram. David Kapos, obviously, and Sharon Barner are what we call the head office. We have something called the Trademark Public Advisory Committee and Patent Public Advisory Committee. These are committees that are made up of outside users and the PTO management, and they meet regularly to discuss our status, our performance, and next steps. Underneath are the two divisions of businesses, patents. Robert Stoll is our commissioner, and Lynn Beresford is our Commissioner for Trademarks. Of course, underneath the head office is also the administrative portion. We have a chief administrative officer, a chief financial officer, an acting administrator for external affairs, which is Paul Salmon. This is actually the department I'm in, external affairs, which basically handles domestic policy in general and international relations. And the Office of General Counsel and Chief Information Officer. Looking a little closer into the Commissioner of Patents, we're looking into this division right here, this branch. He has 3 branches under him. The Office of Deputy Commissioner, Acting Associate Commissioner for Patent Examination Policy, and then the Associate Commissioner for Patent Resources and Planning. The Deputy Commissioner is Peggy Focarino. Underneath her are all the examiners. And I'll go more into detail about how they're divided up. The Acting Associate Commissioner for Patent Examination Policy, that's all the legal policy for the patents specifically. There's the Office of Petitions, Legal Administration, PCT Legal, Patent Quality Assurance, and the Manual of Patent Examining Procedure, the MPEP. If you're not familiar with the MPEP, it's actually a very useful tool. This is what the examiners use. It's basically like a tome, a Bible for the examiners. It has everything explaining how we practice in the procedures of the office. And the resources department is where we have the resources for the examiner. For example, search and information resources, all the computers, the search databases, the biotechnology search databases are under this division. Planning and capacity, patent resources, everything that supports the examiners, from the desks to the rooms, everything involved. Let's go to the next slide. Now this is what I was talking about. This is the branch for the Deputy Commissioner. These are all the different technology centers. We divide up our examiners into different technologies. Technology 1600 is our biotech and organic chemistry. Actually, this is where I am from. I should stop for a second. I didn't introduce myself properly, sorry. I originally was a researcher at the National Institutes of Health in biotechnology. I moved to the patent office back in 1998 and became an examiner in this section. I moved up through the organization. I became a supervisor, and then they actually paid for law school at the office. So I got my law degree while working. I was a part-time law student. And then now I work for the Office of External Affairs as an attorney. So I've kind of gone through the system. The next department is technology, 1700, 2900. It's chemicals and chemical engineering and designs. 2100, computer architecture and information. 2400, the reason it's kind of down here is, the reason it's down here is because it's a fairly new, it's about a year old, actually almost a year and a half old. They split it out because this area, as you can imagine, is growing very rapidly. Networking, multiplexing, cable, and security. 2600, communications and information processing. Technology 2800, semiconductors. 3600 is assorted different technologies, transportation, construction, agriculture, and national security. And 3700 is mechanical engineering. These will be important to look at because when I show a PPH slide later, you're going to see the different number of filings of PPH for each technology. And the interest of the applicants in PPH vary with the technology. Some technologies, the applicants very much use PPH, some others less so. Okay. What are our goals? Well, we have a strategic plan that's actually available on our website, Our three main goals are to optimize patent quality and timeliness. Goal 2, optimize trademark quality and timeliness. And goal 3, improve intellectual property protection and enforcement domestically and abroad. And our overall goal is, of course, to achieve organizational excellence. What are our priorities? Obviously, number one, we've been suffering from a very long pendency, and we're trying to reduce that. We also have suffering from the backlogs. PPH is one of our main programs to resolve that. We're trying to revitalize our IT infrastructure, and we're trying to develop a sustainable funding model. As I said, this is a very important area of having control over your money. It's going to allow us to better control our resources to adjust for the challenges that change over time. Some of the other ones, of course, are building a more collaborative working environment, strengthen IP protection worldwide, and redefine patent quality metrics. Here's a graph of our filings, both trademark and patents. Patents is the darker. And you can see, obviously, over the last 10, 20 years, we have seen a steady increase. The latter part right here sort of dipped down. I think that's a result of the economic crisis. We definitely saw a decrease in the number of filings. From my understanding, the number of filings has increased for this year, 2010. We should be higher than last year, and it's looking optimistic. Trademarks is very interesting. I'll just show you this one. There's a little bit of a blip here, but has generally seen an increase. Can anyone kind of guess why there was a blip in the around 1999, 2000? Can anyone kind of guess what was happening at that time? Exactly, the dot-com bubble. Remember, everyone was dot-comming their companies. They were also trademarking their company names, pet.com, chair.com, everything.com. We saw, once with the dot-com bubble bursting, we definitely saw a decrease in trademarks. Interesting, patents did not see a decrease through that phenomenon. That might say a lot about the type of technology or type of industries that companies seek patents for, as opposed to possibly trademarks. Here are utility, design, and re-exam filings. I've taken out plants, but as you can see, there's been a general increase as you saw from the previous graph. This is an interesting graph. Just measuring the number of years it took to get to the next millionth patent issued. In 1911, it took to get to the first million, 121 years. To the next 2 million, it took only 21 years. But as we moved forward, it didn't really change that much. So it's 1 million, 2 million, 3 million, 4 million, 5 million. We saw a little bit of a drop here. From here to here, we're definitely seeing a less time it takes to get to the next millionth patent. I think a lot of it has to do with the number of filings. As we're increasing the number of filings, a proportionate amount are going to be allowed and issued, so we're seeing a higher number. Down here is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7th million took only 6 years from the previous million. I would predict that probably for the next million, there would not be too much of a change. We had a lot of quality initiatives, basically quality review processes in the office in the previous administration, and the examiners weren't actually really that happy about them. It became more of a punishment if there was any error, and they became more reluctant to allow. So our allowance rate actually dropped. With David Kapos, with the new administration, he has changed that system. He's gotten rid of a lot of the quality review processes and is changing them. So my understanding that the allowance rate is increasing, and the examiners are much happier, so to speak, because it's not used as a punitive method of punishment. It's more for learning. That's a problem, I think, with almost every office. How to maintain quality, doing quality review, and then how to use it to improve the process as opposed to punishing the examiners. Here's our fee income. As you can see, we've increased quite a lot, even since 1982. Let me go back here real quickly. I do want to mention that obviously this has a lot to do with the number of filings we're increasing. We don't control our amount, how much we charge for the different fees, both associated with examination and the maintenance fees. They're set by Congress. They're changed periodically, but it has to be done with approval through Congress. And that's one of the things we're trying to hope for, is having better control of those fees. If you can control those fees, as I said, we'll have better control of our operations and better adjust how we can handle different crises, different situations. One of the crises that we just experienced was the economic crisis and the decrease in filings. If we had a little more control over our fees, that might have helped better control the operations. We were definitely under a crunch this past year where all the departments had to relinquish a certain amount of their budget. For example, Office of External Affairs, we had to relinquish a certain amounts, which meant a lot of meetings could not be fully attended by the whole, what we usually send out, delegation. Travel was also cut, and then it would also affect examiners. The law tuition that I told you about, the reimbursement, the program that we have where we actually paid for examiners to go to law school, that was ended. So there are a lot of things that are cut immediately in response to this effect. But if we had better control of our fees, we believe we can better control our future. Here's a pendency diagram. The top is our patents pendency. This is pendency to first action, basically from the time of filing to the time the examiner sends a full office action. Basically, the examiner has done a search, examined, and written office action. As you can see, we've definitely been increasing over time, up to around 25, 26 months. This is all actually all available on the USPTO website. I just graphed it. But this is all an average. Different technologies obviously have different pendencies. Some are worse and some are better than others. Trademarks has always been very, very pretty good. They always make fun of us in patents. Okay, and then here's the breakdown by technology. This is the what we saw in the graph before, the first action pendency, and then there's total pendency, the time for disposal, what we call disposal. Either it's patented, or it's allowed, or it's sent up to our Board of Patent Appeals, our administrative judges. As you can see, they're different for each technology. Just the things I'll point out: biotechnology and organic chemistry is relatively lower than the other technologies. Communications, very, very high, very, very high. So you can see this is actually very interesting. As I said, the PPH program, there's different amounts of participation dependent on the type of technology. We're seeing excellent participation in this area, 2600 communications. We're seeing less participation in biotechnology. I think it has a lot to do with the type of industry that we're dealing with. Biotechnology industry, the pharmaceutical industry, I mean, I come from that industry, so I understand it. They have to go through a lot of FDA approvals. The technology is quite complex. It takes a long time to develop a product and to get it to market. They are a little bit less in a rush to get a patent. And oftentimes, they often don't even know exactly what they're patenting. They're good at writing long patents, but oftentimes it's very complex to figure out where the patentable invention is. So they're not necessarily in a rush. So PPH, we have found with this industry, is not as used as much. Communications, the computer field, they are definitely very, very interested in PPH because the technology changes so fast. If it takes so long to get a patent, it's almost useless to them. So they want a quick determination as possible, and PPH is perfect for them. And we're hearing very good responses from applicants in these areas. Our view in PPH, and I'll probably repeat this in the next talk, is that we don't limit by technology. This is an option open to all applicants. It's their choice to decide whether they want to use it or not. These are the grants, again, utility, design, and re-exam. For patents, we've gone up, but we've kind of leveled out a bit. I would suspect, I think, as I mentioned, David Kaplas's initiatives on quality and his change in what he's done in the patent core will have an effect on this, and I would assume that, and I would predict that it will be increasing as he's in charge, which I believe is a good thing. Here's some end-of-the-year statistics for 2009. We had about 450,000 utility applications, 25,000 design, 961 reissue. It was a 2.2 decrease over last year, and there were 992 plant applications filed. We go by a fiscal year, September to September. So we just finished our fiscal year, so we'll be coming out with the latest data. They do the number crunching analysis this month. If you go to our website, probably by the end of October, we'll have the preliminary data. But as I said, from what I've heard and what I've seen, this number will probably beat this number. So I think just from a patent USPTO point of view, it does seem that the economy seems to be taking an upturn, at least in the area of patents. We're seeing more filings, which is a positive signal. Here's our human capital. The patent line has about 8,000 or close to 9,000 workers. Trademark has 900 or so. Total about 9,700. Specifically examiners, there are about 6,000 examiners, and there are 388 examining attorneys. An examiner does not need a law degree. It's not required. They need a technical degree. But a lot of the examiners are actually pursuing law degrees on their own. And this past year, from like about 2005 to 2009, we were hiring about 1,000 examiners a year. We're going through a huge hiring expansion to deal with our pendency and backlogs. So we actually have seen a huge growth. That's part of the reason we moved, is to consolidate. But as you can imagine, training those examiners is a real difficulty. Before, we were maybe hiring 100 or maybe 200 a year, if not. And we would have a mentor system where they would work. Well, actually, we send them to a training school, so to speak, for 2 weeks on campus. And then they would go back to their supervisor, their department, and work with a mentor, which is a senior examiner or supervisor. As you can imagine, with 1,000 examiners, we didn't have enough mentors or capacity to fulfill that need. So they developed what we call the Patent Training Academy, where they actually sent the new examiners, for 8 months. They were basically in school. They would have lectures, but they would also be working with so to speak, a mentor, a senior examiner, basically an instructor, in a large classroom. They would have their own, I don't know how you call it, like a section, and they would work with them on live cases. So they weren't working in their department. They were actually in school for 8 months. They have altered the program, so to speak, making it shorter, having more interaction with the departments as we've learned to improve the program. But that is one big change that's happened, is that the examiners are now in school for almost the first year. When I was an examiner, we didn't have any of that. I was in school for 2 weeks, and then we were just sent immediately over to our supervisor, and we just started working. So again, there's pluses and minuses, I think, to that system. The pluses is I think we can maximize how many examiners we can train. Whether they get better or worse, I think many of you probably know a lot of it has to depend on the examiner. The examiner has to put in the work to learn it and to do it properly and to be proactive. So it really depends a lot on them. Some people respond very well in the classroom environment. Some respond better on a one-on-one basis. So I think there are benefits and negatives to each system. But we've had success, and we're continuing. With 2009, we did see, like I told you, an economic crisis, so we stopped the hiring, or we lowered the amount. We weren't hiring that many, and we also focused on hiring more senior candidates with more experience in the patent field. As you can imagine, we were able to, because with the economic crisis, a lot of people were out of a job or looking for a job. So there were a lot of attorneys, a lot of senior people with a lot of experience in the patent field. So we kind of had our pick. So we're trying to find people with a lot of experience who could jump into examining much quicker. We didn't have to devote as much resources. I mean, we would still train them, but we were hoping that with their experience, they could get started and get up to what we call production, their efficiency level, as quickly as possible. Feel free to ask any questions if you want to. And quality, these are just some measurements that we're seeing. Like I said, we're changing our quality and measurements as we speak. So I think these will probably change, but we're always looking to improve the process. And this is our allowance rate over time. I'm not going to go over this because I'm going to go over it in a separate section. But these are some of the work-sharing activities that we've been doing, not just PPH. PPH, I said, is bilateral. We also have multilateral work-sharing activities. The trilateral organization, which is made up of USPTO, EPO, and JPO. They have almost 3 decades of cooperation. And in fact, the PPH program sprang out of the trilateral. It really was the JPO and USPTO's cooperation in developing this program. Some of you may have heard of the IP5 framework, which is the 5 offices, USPTO, EPO, JPO, KIPO, and SIPO. Together, I think they make up over 90% of the filings. They've been meeting since 2007, developing a work-sharing environment, how to improve the environment for the examiners so they can work share. They've they have planned for 10 foundational projects, basically the tools that examiners use. For example, a common database, a common search tool, common classification, all the tools that are necessary for the examiner to do his job. If we are all have access or are using the same tools, that will make work sharing a lot easier because we'll understand what each person is, what the other offices are doing. We'll have a common language. This is a long-term project, as you can imagine, and will cost a great deal. Right now we're at the planning stages of development, and we have pilots at each of the different projects, but it's almost just an achievement that all 5 offices are talking to each other and meeting and planning and making some progress. So we expect a lot in the future for this framework. 3-track proposal is something that the USPTO proposed. It's from David Kapos. Basically, it's 3 tracks for the applicants. Applicants can expedite their applications if they pay a fee, or they can delay for 30 months their application. And the 3rd track, or the last track, is the normal prosecution track. Again, this is just a proposal. It's available on our website, where you send it out for users and the public to comment on. There's still a lot of rulemaking to be made and analysis, but it's something that David Kapos has proposed. The one thing I'd like to mention is just to show that our director is trying to think outside the box, trying to think creatively in how to deal with our backlogs. Some of our other initiatives internally, it's compact prosecution. We're trying to develop acceleration programs where, for example, there is an actual program called the acceleration program, where we will guarantee from filing within 1 year a resolution, and not just an office action, a resolution. But there are certain requirements by applicants. They have to actually do an initial search and write a document as to why the art they found is not causing any problems with the claims. So they have to do a certain amount of work, but that is available to them. We have fast track programs for green technology, something called Project Exchange. We call it kind of like money for clunkers. If you have 2 applications that you're willing to abandon, we'll expedite one of your applications. So basically, it's to encourage applicants to be responsible for their dockets, for their applications. A lot of times we have found that applicants are not strategically and efficiently filing and managing their portfolio. They just file and file and file without thinking. And this is to encourage efficiency on their side. If they're not going to pursue it, abandon it, and then pursue what you really want, again, to help with the backlogs. We reformed the examiner count system. The examiners work and they're measured by a quota system. It's called a count system. Every 2 weeks, they have to do a certain number of counts, the quota. That hasn't been changed in over 30 years. David Kapos worked with our examiner. We have a union, examiners union, which is very, very protective of the examiners. And they were actually able to negotiate to change the count system. So now, very simply, I can go more into detail if you want more questions, you have more questions on it. But now the emphasis is they get more time to do the first office action, okay? And less time for later office actions. What's the point? The point is to emphasize doing a good job in the beginning and addressing all the issues and not waiting to resolve things toward the end. With the other system, examiners, there might have been a tendency for examiners to prolong the prosecution, prolong the length of time, and only get serious toward the end and trying to resolve and help applicant. The count system is trying to focus more on trying to do a good job and letting examiners know, letting the applicant know if there's allowable subject matter in the beginning. Also, another thing we have at the USPTO is something called RCEs, Requests for Continued Examination. The applicant can request another round. If they pay, they get another round of prosecution. It's like like maybe in baseball, you get to go at bat again. You get to come up to bat again. So that has caused a kind of a prolonging of the examination of these applications, because applicants know they can do it again. If they don't get what they want the first time, or they're not happy, they say, "Oh, I'll just make the applicant pay a little more, and we can just do it again, and we'll narrow down we'll resolve all the issues." The examiner count system, they get less counts for that. They get less points for it. So there's less emphasis. There's less value to continuing on. Again, that's to encourage trying to do it right the first time and trying to get everything resolved as early as possible. And hiring expansion, as I said, this year we lowered the amount of people we're hiring, but for this coming year, I just heard that we are back up to our expansion, and we're probably going to be hiring over 1,000 examiners again. Okay, so that's just an overview of the USPTO. I can answer some questions and take some time before I start the PPH presentation. Does anyone have any questions? Nobody wants to know how much the examiner makes? That's what I always get at every other office I go to. I mean, examiners will vary depending on the level that they're at, depending on the technology. But I would say overall it's pretty competitive. I should say it's pretty competitive. It depends on when and at what industry you're talking about. Back probably in the early 2000 or so, in the computer field, I think it was very hard for us to match the private industry. The examiners started rather low, especially the computer and mechanical engineering, all the type of engineering. They actually started a little bit lower than the private industry. I would say, I'm going to just throw out a number, I would say about 40,000 to 55,000 US dollars per year, which is actually very low compared to what they could have gotten in private industry. But now with the economic crisis, that's a lot better than not having a job. So it's actually very, very favorable to that industry now. And also another thing is that the steadiness of promotion is very, very consistent. And at the top level, when you become a senior, I shouldn't say senior, what we call primary examiner, you're making close to 100,000 US dollars, which is very competitive and quite good for any industry, actually. And in particular, if you're talking about an engineer, engineer comes out of college at age 22 or so, and I would say they can reach primary examiner for engineers probably 6-7 years, average 6 years. So 28, they're making 6 figures already. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. There's also bonuses. We have something called hoteling, where they can work at home. They no longer have to come in, which is fantastic. Most of the examiners love it, especially the women. The women who are planning to raise families or are raising families, they really, really like it. And also the men. The men love it too. So it's a great incentive. I think we have the best hoteling program maybe in the nation compared government and private industry. There are people I don't see anymore. I mean, they're basically, they come back and they look different. You don't see them for 5 years or something. But they're very, very happy, especially with the traffic and just the maintaining their lifestyle, maintaining their families. It's a really huge incentive. That's one thing that we're actually very, very proud of. For biotechnology, I would say actually it is competitive. I don't know if many of you are in the bio field. The bio field is actually not that competitive private industry-wise as compared to the engineering private industry. So I always felt that even as a beginning examiner, that was a better job, better pay than what you could get in private industry on average. So the same thing holds if you're a primary examiner in biotechnology. You're probably making about 6 figures or so. And like I said, combined with all the other pluses, we have a daycare center. What do we have? We also have a gym. That's quite nice. So there's a lot of, it's quite nice. The campus almost has a college type of atmosphere. And I think we've gotten grown enough that we feel comfortable with the hoteling. I think in the beginning, most of the managers were very reluctant about hoteling because they would never see the examiner. They didn't think they had control, but now all the supervisors want hoteling. Well, the supervisors don't have hoteling. All the examiners do. The supervisors don't. See, the top managers don't trust the middle managers, so we don't get it. But they do have telework. They can work 1 or 2 days at home per week, which is reasonable too. But the supervisors definitely want to have hoteling. And there have been some experiments where a whole, what we call art unit, there's technology centers, but they're broken down further into smaller groups, where a small group was actually all hoteling, including the supervisor. So they would meet on video conferencing for staff meetings and things like that. And it functioned fine. I would say examining job is the best job. It's the most appropriate job for telework, because everyone's working on their own, and the production, your results speak for themselves at the end of 2 weeks. So it's perfectly measurable. So telework works perfectly for the USPTO. Yes.
What do you mean for hoteling?
All we call hoteling is teleworking. Hoteling, the reason we call it hoteling is because when the examiner loses their office, they don't have an office anymore. So when they come back, sometimes they come back, there's reasons why they have to come back. Before, in the law, the examiner would have to come back to the duty station, which is the USPTO, 15 minutes per week. That's a requirement. That's by law. Why? Because we need to know, by law, we need to know where their base station is, okay? Their base station is not in their home. Their base station is in USPTO. And why is that important? Because their salaries are determined by their base station, where that location is. Every government agency, there's a salary scale based on their location, because they get increases based on locality. So that's very important. But recently, there has been a change in the law because USPTO lobbied for it. If you're within 50 miles of the USPTO, you no longer have to come in at all. So the reason being why we call it hoteling is because they lose their offices, and when they do come in, they have to reserve a room. So reserve a hotel, not a hotel room, but an office. There's cubicles that they have to reserve in order to work, because they don't have an office anymore. So if they want a space, they have to reserve. That's why it's called hoteling. I'm sorry. When I say hoteling now, I automatically understand it. I apologize. That's true. It seems a little strange. But that's why it was called hoteling, because when they returned, they had to make a reservation. So, okay. Here.
You said that you are based in Alexandria,
Mm-hmm.
Virginia, right? Is there any branch anywhere else in the U.S.?
No.
These people work from LA or
Yeah.
Seattle or...
Well, you said branch. Now, there is no USPTO branch. There was talk, and there was some studies of a branch, developing a branch in other locations. Colorado was suggested. California was suggested. I said if it was California, I would volunteer because everyone wants to go to California. So, but that never progressed. That did not. So there's only one USPTO at Alexandria. The examiners, though, can hotel from anywhere within the United States, territories. So the farthest I've heard is Washington State, which is in the Pacific West. there's a judge, I think, in Hawaii, but he's not an examiner, and he's a judge, so he gets to do what he wants to do. I think the furthest I've heard is Washington. And actually, at the time when that person hoteled, as I told you, 50 miles was the within 50 miles you didn't have to come in. That person in Washington had to come in for those 15 minutes. So I know this person actually. She bought airline tickets for the next 6 months. And what she would do is she would come in on Friday and then come in on Monday, right? So she hit both weeks, 15 minutes on Friday, 15 minutes on Monday, and then she'd be gone the rest of the time in Washington. She had her husband over in Washington, that's why, actually Vancouver. She actually, this is actually very interesting. She actually, the office where they're located has to be in the United States. So she actually lived in Vancouver, Canada, but she created an office. She rented an office for herself in Washington, Seattle. So she actually lived in another country, but she worked in the U.S. So she has to abide by the rules. So it's very interesting. So who knows, maybe in the future they will even get rid of the 50-mile requirement. But there is only one USPTO campus. Okay. I can answer more questions. I think these are always interesting for examiners who are always curious how other examiners, if they're getting treated better. Okay, next slide, next presentation. Okay. This shouldn't take too long. And I think you already understand a lot of it already. The background for the PPH, as you can see, this is a diagram. This is actually an old diagram from 2006. We need to update this. But this is just the 5 largest offices and a representation of the cross filings between the different offices. What we found is that why is there an increase in the number of filings across all the offices? Well, one is the success of patents. People now understand that patents are very important to protect their inventions, protect their products. So I think there's an increase from that. But also, due to the fractured, splintered nature of the patent system, the global patent system, in order to get protection in different countries, you have to apply separately in those different countries. And now, with the globalization of trade, many companies and inventors want to sell not just in one country or 2 countries, they want to sell across the world. So what does that mean? They have to file protection applications across many different jurisdictions. So what we're seeing is basically a number of filings are going to be redundant. They're basically the same application or similar application for their invention, and they're filed in different offices. So essentially what the offices are doing, they're repeating the same work. The work is being redundant. So the idea is, why do that? Why waste your time? Why not build off the other office's work and expedite the prosecution? So this is what we came up with PPH. I'm not going to go over that detailed because you already heard. But PPH is our most advanced work-sharing program. I would say it's even, PCT is a work-sharing prototype in a sense. I don't think it ever reached its full potential. Right now there's a lot of development and discussion at WIPO and all the offices, including USPTO, to work on improving it. But PPH is really an actual work-sharing program because the OSF, the second office, actually does use the results. And I'm going to go a little more detail over what I mean. What are the benefits? Again, you saw this: provides quicker patentability determinations, decreases the cost of prosecution. That's really important. The less time, the less interaction with the office, the less that the attorneys charge their applicants. So it's going to be cheaper overall. Why is it good for us? Again, avoiding redundant work, reducing pendency. But here I want you to focus on something. I don't know if this was highlighted in the previous talk, but claims are reduced in number and narrowed in focus to what was previously allowed. What is PPH doing? They are taking the claims of the allowed claims in the first office, and they're bringing only those into the second office. This is a critical feature of the PPH program, and I'm going to talk more into detail about this. Some of our key requirements is claim correspondence. All claims in each of the U.S. applications must be sufficiently correspond to allowable claims in the application in the OFF. Again, this becomes an issue when we're dealing with a OFF that is not English. It's not in English. So when they do all their examination, they narrow the claims. It's all in a different language. And when they get the allowed claims, they have to translate them, and then they have to amend the U.S. application to correspond to those translated claims. So we want to make sure that they are actually sufficiently correspond, and that's very, very important. The other, and you saw diagrams for this, so I'm not going to go into detail, but the other key requirements are the type of applications. Basically, for national work product, we're looking at the Paris Convention. What's the relationship between the OSF and the OFF? There has to be a Paris Convention priority, Paris priority. There's something called PCT bridge filings, which we call, in our case, is something called the 120. It's something specific to the U.S. We can actually claim domestic priority to a PCT application. So that's also another possibility in the U.S. And we're also using non-binding work product. As you say, the allowable claims in the first office are binding. You have determined that they're going to be allowed and be patented. We're experimenting with other offices' non-binding work product. For example, EPO has an extended European search report, and we allow that as a possible work product. The claims they don't determine that's allowable, but if the claims are free of the prior art, that might be a basis for entering the PPH. So we're experimenting with that. The idea is to be open to whatever work sharing possibilities there are. We just signed an MOU with Germany, and we're going to start looking into their search reports. I will say, though, we haven't had any cases with EESR, or maybe we had one. So it's been very, very low. But we want to collect some data and see if that's a possibility. Again, PCT applications, we're looking at positive international search reports, written opinions, and examination reports. Again, this is limited right now for us. The trilateral offices, USPTO, KIPO, and now, as of October 1st, we are now doing your office, Austria, and Ross Patent. It was quite an achievement to get all three of them. I will tell you, our director is very, very anxious about getting the PCT authorities involved. I think it would strengthen PCT. This is to show that PPH is complementary to PCT. They strengthen each other and makes it only more valuable for users. PPH pilot to full implementation. We went from pilot to full implementation with Japan and Korea. The rest are technically a pilot. Really no difference, honestly, but the pilot has a defined time period, allowing both offices to re-examine whether they want to continue, and they also allow them to analyze the data and see. But essentially, there's no change in the procedures from pilot to full implementation. Here are some of our current and planned PPH programs. We're, as Gerard had mentioned, we're working with China. China has a lot of reservations and concerns, but we are, I just came back from Beijing and had a very good meeting with them and addressing some of their concerns. So I believe that we will have success in the future. And here is the latest data that we have from our PPH filings. As you can see, JPL obviously has the most. That, I think, has attributed to two things. One, it's the oldest pilot. It's the oldest cooperative PPH program. And two, we do have a lot of cross-filings with JPL. KIPO is our next. Also, again, very, very high numbers. I think a lot of it has to do with filings. But we're seeing numbers that are slowly increasing. And the next graph can show you a representative. We're seeing definitely a positive increase in slope as we're going up. David Kapos has made a goal to hit numerical targets of 4,000 by the end of the year, which we definitely should do, but 8,000 the following year, and then 12,000 the following year. I believe we can only do that with increasing the number of really getting PCT authorities involved. That represents a huge resource of work sharing potential. Here's that graph I was mentioning about the different technologies. And these are the different numbers of PPH filings for each one. Remember, 2600 is the communications. I told you that this industry is highly evolving, very quick. The applicants want quick determination. And here we see a lot of filings. There's actually one group, one department within that technology, and they are actually only doing PPH. That's how popular it is. Again, TC 1600, rather low compared to the others. Again, I think it's more representative of the industry needs, but it's offered to everyone. Here are some PPH metrics. Average first action, as you saw, about 25 months for non-PPH. PPH, this is a grant from PPH request to first action. It's about 2 to 3 months. I want to warn you, this is not the exact comparison. You can't compare, how would I say, it's like apples to oranges. It's not exactly a fair comparison. So it's actually from the date of PPH request to first action, not the date of filing. It's hard to get a representation because they can request the PPH at any time in their filing. So it's very hard to make a measurement like this. So the best you can take from this is saying that from the grant of PPH request to first action is a quick turnaround, so we can get a first office action fairly quickly from the time they request it. A more revealing number is the allowance rate. For PPH cases, it's about 95%. 95% of the PPH applications reach allowance, whereas non-PPH cases about 44%. So we more than doubled the allowance rate. And another revealing number is actions per disposal. What this means is the number of times we have to send out an office action to the applicant. Okay, on average, the non-PPH case is about 2.3. It's about average. PPH is 1.7. A lower number is better. The less office actions you write to disposal is better, right? So we want a lower number. So this is taking less time, less effort by the office to reach the end result. Let's see, I want to go back to one thing because it's actually very important. It's the claims. Claims are reduced in number. As I said, the claims, when they're taken from the first office, only allowed claims are are brought into the second application. The applicants have to do a pre-amendment. They have to cancel the non-allowed claims, and then they have to make sure and amend the U.S. claims to correspond in scope to the allowed claims in the first office. We're seeing a lot of benefit from this because it lowers the number of claims. I don't know how you feel as examiners, but most U.S. examiners would rather have less claims to look at than more. So this is where we're seeing a lot of benefits, and examiners really like this feature. Let's see. So in this sense, you're really actually work sharing because you're building off what was allowed before. Now, one thing to remember, though, is that this is not mutual recognition. We respect the right, or this program respects the right of, the right of every office and the sovereignty of every office. The examiner is just using what is entering into their office. They must do the examination by the laws and procedures of their country. So they must deal with whatever they have. So there's no, because the first office allowed, therefore the second office must allow. That's not the case. They must examine and search. And we see that because the first office action allowance of PPH is not 100%. Is not 100%. If it was 100%, that means they would be allowing whatever came in, right? If the first office action allowance in the second office was 100%, that means everything was allowed the first time it entered into the second office. That means there would be no problems. But it isn't that. I think it's around 25% or so. So there are problems, and there's still, examiners are doing their job, rejecting claims, rejecting the allowed claims from the previous office into U.S. So the examiners are doing their job and making sure they comply with U.S. law for our case. What's the plans for the future? We have an action plan, as I said. We're going to align the PCT to PPH via the trilateral pilot program, but we're actually expanding even further now. We're going to expand it to as many PCT authorities as possible. We're conducting PPH awareness. We're working with a lot of different user groups, both domestically and internationally. JPO is also heading that. For example, I'm doing a webinar with the Boston Bar Association. I'll be also working with the New York State Bar Association. So we're getting the word out, explaining this program, how to use it to the practitioners. Because it's the practitioners who are really going to decide whether they want to use it or not. And expand PPH with other offices bilaterally and getting the numbers up. Plurilateral PPH cooperation, again, like I said, this is a framework where all the PPH partner offices get together and they work to streamline procedures, share best practices and statistics. And we also have a website. It's run by the JPO. I can show it to you later. And it actually has a lot of data, and I'm going to show you one of the data. This is actually from the Plurilateral PPH website at JPO. And actually, if you click, it actually shows all the different PPH programs. If you actually click on one of these buttons, it will bring up all the relevant information for that PPH program, including all the request forms. Okay, so this is to help applicants have easy access, one-stop shopping, so to speak. Okay. Okay, so we're very, very proud of the PPH. We're very proud that the Spanish Patent and Trademark Office has joined. I think it's a really good program for users and for the offices. So I'm really excited for the future. Thank you.
Bueno, muchas gracias. Thank you very much, Jeffrey. I wonder whether there are questions or comments, remarks. Well, thank you very much because you have just ended on time. And now
ahora hay una... Es abajo, ¿verdad? Lo del... En la 15, bueno, pues hay un intercambio de opiniones con Jeffrey en la 15. ¿Ahora inmediatamente o en...? Pues en la planta 15 podemos esperar, pues, ¿qué quedamos? ¿Un cuarto de hora o así? Pues en 15 minutos, para aquellos que quisieran asistir o que tengáis pensado asistir, tenemos preparado el aula abajo con Jeffrey, donde podéis intercambiar opiniones, preguntarles por los salarios de los examinadores de Estados Unidos, si no se lo habéis preguntado y todo eso, y darle vuestro currículum, lo que estiméis pertinente para el futuro. Pues nos vemos en 15 minutos abajo. Vale, gracias. Thank you very much.
No, thank you. Do we break up? Or
Yes, we have a small break-up of 15 minutes, and then maybe we can leave the things downstairs.
Here?
Or here, maybe here.
Oh, no.
better.
Oh, no, I'll bring it. It's okay.
Okay,
It's very
no
small.
problem.
Very small.
And then, okay, we will join in the... But we can have a coffee. Would you like coffee?
That's
Yeah,
great.
okay.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, can you send me a copy?
No problem, no
Yeah.
problem.
You know that graph is excellent.
Yes, yes.
Did you make that graph?
No. The
that's
global is
what
me,
they
but
did.
Yes. They're great. They're great.
Sí, yo creo que las dejamos ya. Muchas gracias, María José. Sí, hay que darle el botoncito. Bueno, no sé cómo se apaga. Ahora, en 15 minutos.
Sí, pero me refiero a los que no han venido a esta conferencia, pero que se habían apuntado.
Yo creo que los que tienen a los estaban todos aquí. Con los nombres y tal. Vale. Voy a decir. Voy a ver por lo menos que está abierta.
Sí, abierto está, pero no sé cuál es.
Es la C. La C.